You know that 3 p.m. wall where your eyes go heavy at your desk, even though you slept a full 8 hours? Or midnight hits and suddenly you're wide awake scrolling your phone like your brain just woke up for the day. Then there's jet lag wrecking you for days, or somehow waking up 60 seconds before your alarm without even trying. So why does your body seem to run on its own secret schedule, deciding when you're alert or wiped out, no matter what the clock on the wall says? The answer isn't about willpower or bad luck. It's a cluster of brain cells smaller than a grain of rice, quietly reading light through your eyes and using it to run your entire day. This is the body clock, explained like you're 5. Here's what makes this stranger than it sounds. You didn't agree to this schedule. Nobody handed you a copy of it, and yet it runs anyway, every single day, like a program installed before you were born. So the real question isn't why you're lazy or why your sleep feels broken. It's this. What inside you is actually making these decisions without asking you first? Something is deciding, and it's not the clock on your nightstand. Deep in your brain, tucked behind your eyes, sits a control center so small you could lose it in a pile of rice, literally. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, but forget that mouthful. Just picture a tiny control room, staffed by a few thousand cells, sitting right above where your optic nerves cross. That's it. That's the thing running your entire day. Not your alarm clock, not your to-do list. This grain of rice-sized cluster is the reason you feel wide awake at midnight, and the reason your eyelids turn to lead at 3 p.m. One structure, two completely different feelings, depending on what it just heard.
Rum dum, grind sig.
This control room doesn't check a calendar. It doesn't know it's Tuesday. It doesn't care what your schedule says you're supposed to be doing. It checks your eyes. Specifically, it checks for light hitting your retinas. That's the entire input system. Light comes in, a signal gets sent straight to this tiny brain region, and it treats that light as its only reliable source of truth about what time it is. So when you're lying in bed at midnight scrolling your phone, your eyes are pulling in a decent amount of light. Your control room doesn't know the difference between a phone screen and a sunrise. It just registers brightness and thinks, oh, it's daytime. That's why you suddenly feel more alert than you did an hour ago, even though logically you know you should be winding down. You're not weak-willed. You accidentally sent your internal clock a daytime signal at midnight. Once this master clock reads the light, it doesn't flip a switch instantly. It sends out instructions on a slower timer, like a chemical messenger system running on its own delay. In the morning, once enough light comes in, it tells your body to start releasing cortisol, the hormone that physically nudges you out of bed and into alertness. This isn't the cortisol people talk about when they mean stress. This is the useful kind, the kind that acts like an internal engine starting up. Then, as light fades in the evening, the same control room shifts its instructions and starts releasing melatonin instead, the chemical that makes your body feel heavier, calmer, ready to wind down. Morning light, cortisol rises. Evening darkness, melatonin rises. Two chemicals, one clock, and light is the dial that decides which one gets released. Here's where it gets almost unfair. This whole system was built for a world that didn't have light bulbs, streetlights, or phone screens. For most of human history, the only light strong enough to matter was the sun. So the master clock evolved with one simple rule. Bright light means day, darkness means night. It never had to learn to tell the difference between sunlight and a screen, because there was no difference to learn. Now flip forward to tonight, when you're under bright kitchen lights, laptop open, phone in hand, scrolling right before bed. Your control room is reading all of that as daylight. It's not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, with information it was never designed to handle. The confusion isn't a flaw in you, it's a mismatch between an ancient system and a modern environment full of artificial daylight that never turns off. Now think about that 3 p.m. wall again, the one where your eyes go heavy, even after 8 solid hours of sleep. This is where people usually blame themselves, thinking they didn't sleep well enough, or they need more coffee, or something's wrong with their body. But the master clock runs on a near 24-hour loop, and that loop naturally includes a dip in alertness in the mid-afternoon. It's baked into the rhythm itself, regardless of how much sleep you got the night before. Your control room isn't reacting to tiredness. It's following its own internal schedule, the same way it schedules cortisol in the morning and melatonin at night. The 3 p.m. heaviness is a scheduled event, not a personal failure. Jet lag tells a different part of the story. When you cross time zones, your light schedule changes instantly, but your internal clock doesn't. It's still running on the light pattern from wherever you used to be. Suddenly the sun is rising and setting at completely different hours than what your control room expects, and it takes several days of new light exposure before it catches up and resets its rhythm to match. That grogginess, that feeling of being a few hours behind your own body, is the master clock slowly recalibrating one day at a time. It's proof this clock isn't guessing. It's tracking a real pattern, and patterns take time to update. Then there's the strange trick of waking up seconds before your alarm goes off. That's not a coincidence, and it's not some sixth sense. If you've been waking at a similar time for days or weeks, your control room has learned that pattern. It starts nudging cortisol release slightly ahead of time, anticipating the wake moment before the alarm even has a chance to ring. Your body isn't waiting for a mechanical sound to tell it what to do. It already knows because the loop has been tracking your light exposure and your habits far more precisely than you'd expect from something the size of a grain of rice. So if this tiny control room in your brain is running the whole show, how do you actually talk to it? Here's the good news. It doesn't need a lecture, a lifestyle overhaul, or some complicated routine. It just needs one clear signal, delivered at the right moment. That signal is morning light. When light hits your eyes after you wake up, it tells your master clock that melatonin production should wind down and cortisol should start rising. That's the off switch and the on switch, both flipped by the same input. The moment light first reaches your eyes each morning is the moment your body clock marks as the true start of your day, regardless of what your alarm says. Mercury datu de Demart. This is where the strength of the light actually matters. Natural daylight, even on a cloudy morning, carries far more intensity than the light inside your house. That's the same reason cloudy days can still leave you feeling groggier than sunny ones. It's not the temperature or the mood outside, it's the sheer amount of light reaching your eyes and how clearly your brain can read it as daytime. So the action here is simple. Sometime within about an hour of waking up, step outside for 5 to 10 minutes. No sunglasses. You don't need to stare at the sun. Just let your eyes take in the open sky. Let natural light land on your face while you're standing outside, drinking coffee, walking to your car, whatever fits your morning. This gives your master clock the clearest, strongest version of the signal it's designed to look for. What's actually happening here is not you forcing your body into submission. It's you finally speaking the language your body clock already understands. Remember, this tiny structure never had a separate agenda. It never decided to sabotage your sleep or punish you for scrolling your phone. It was simply reacting, precisely and faithfully, to whatever light pattern it received. Feeling wide awake at midnight wasn't a malfunction. It was correct behavior based on incorrect information. Once you understand that, the whole relationship changes. You're not fighting a broken system. You're recalibrating an accurate one, using the one input it actually listens to. Over days of consistent morning light, small things tend to shift on their own, quietly, without effort. Maybe you notice waking up a little easier, a little closer to when you meant to. Maybe you notice getting sleepy earlier at night, without forcing it. Maybe that stretch of grogginess in the afternoon feels slightly less heavy than before. These aren't guarantees, and they won't look the same for everyone. But they're worth paying attention to, because they're small signs that the loop is adjusting its rhythm to match the signal you're now giving it consistently, instead of the scattered, mismatched signals it was getting before. And this brings us back to that 3 p.m. wall from the very beginning. The heavy eyes at your desk, the fog rolling in no matter how much sleep you got the night before. That was never a mystery about laziness, and it was never proof that something's wrong with you. It was your master clock, faithfully running the instructions it received earlier that day, dipping right on schedule because that dip is baked into its near 24-hour loop. The body clock was never ignoring you. It was listening the entire time, just not to the clock on your wall. So the next time you feel that strange mismatch, wired at midnight, foggy at 3 p.m., groggy despite a full night's sleep, remember what's actually happening. A cluster of cells the size of a grain of rice is reading light through your eyes and translating it into the chemistry of your entire day. You don't need to negotiate with it through willpower. You talk to it through your eyes, not your alarm. And that conversation starts the moment you choose to have it, tomorrow morning, outside, before the day even asks anything of you.